Okay, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for joining us in this webinar named Software Testing, Maximize Value and Minimize Cost. I'm Rodolfo Viola, representative of the U.S. for several Argentinian companies doing IT business in the U.S., based in Houston, Texas, and member of the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce. The Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce is an independent, non-profit voluntary membership association founded in 2016 with the objective of promoting investment, trading, education, and networking opportunities between Texas and Argentina by acting as a catalyst for innovative, ethical, and productive business relationships. The ATCC also offers support and resources to help companies navigate cultural differences and overcome challenges associated with doing business in a foreign country. Chamber is dedicated to fostering a strong economic relationship between Argentina and Texas and promoting growth and prosperity for the region. In this webinar, we will explore the importance of testing during software development. We review tangible value added of projects and why test is a wise investment rather than a necessary expense. Talking about our speaker, Nadia is an information system engineer and psychologist. She has been working in testing and quality for more than 17 years. She was the co-founder of the Argentinian Testing Congress. She was a judge of the Software Testing World Cup and is part of the review committee of many conferences and certification. She was recognized by Abstracta as one of the most influential women in testing, by Global as the digital leader in Argentina in 2021, and by ASTQB as one of the global finalists for excellence. Nadia obtained the certification in testing fundamentals, rational functional testing with Java scripting, Scrum fundamentals, and ISO 9001-2015 internal audit. She often writes for magazines, blogs, and books, gives courses and conferences. Nadia has one YouTube channel in Spanish and other in English. Finally, we would like to express our gratitude to our corporate members for their continued support to the Chamber. Without them, these activities would not be possible. They are Pan American Energy, our gold member, Duralight Global, and PCR Silver members, as well as Mayer Brown, Practica, and Rochelle Bronze members. With all this said, this webinar will take about 45 minutes of presentation, and at the end, we will have 10-15 minutes for question and answer. Please feel free to write a question in the Zoom chat. And now, Nadia, you get the command. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to ask you have you ever noticed that while everyone understands why software development is important, we still have to explain why testing is important. It's taken for granted that development produces software regardless of its quality. It's not important if that software is good or bad, if it will be useful for users or not, but working or not, we have software. Today, we are here to talk about the importance of testing and how it plays a crucial role in maximizing the value and minimizing the cost. Testing is not just a checkbox on the development checklist. It's a vital component that helps us to meet the highest standard of quality, reliability, and user and client satisfaction and expectations. But I have here some slides to introduce myself, but Rodolfo did it very well, so we can skip this slide. And just to let you know that you can reach me in all the social networks. Well, if I ask you what testing is, you would probably say that it's an activity that finds defects. And that definition is correct, but it's incomplete. In testing, we do so many things at it, and it's curious that we are only recognized for finding defects. In testing, we take care of user requirements. We strive to create a solution that aligns as closely as possible with expectations of users and clients. In testing, we propose improvements to not only meet their expectations, but also to surpass them. In testing, we ask the right questions to reduce omissions, ambiguities, and misunderstandings. In testing, we provide objectively and constructive feedback to the product to avoid developers' confirmation biases. In testing, we get into paths that no one else has explored before and the user intentionally or unintentionally will do. In testing, we execute the software to gain confidence in the system and don't have to feel fear when the user interact with the software. Maybe we are in a demo and we think, please don't touch that key. No, we can get confidence in the software. And in testing, we help to mitigate the risk associated with the product. So as you can see, in testing, we do a lot of things, but we are only known for one of them, just finding defects. Well, so let's continue. When we talk about testing, it's common to hear these statements. Testing is a boring and monotonous task. And I think, what? Of course not. Testing involves creation. It's a creative process that requires analyzing, planning, design, role-playing, putting oneself in the shoes of different users and interacting with different stakeholders. So it's very funny. Testing is only done at the end of the project. Testing is conducted throughout the software lifecycle. In fact, there is a growing emphasis on shift-left testing strategy, which involves moving testing to early stages. Only testers perform testing. That's not true. Testing is an activity that occurs at different moments, and there are times when developers can perform that activity, for example, during unit testing, or it can be done by analysts, for instance, when defining acceptance test cases in the ATDD approach. Too much time is wasted for documenting tests. Well, we have approaches like exploratory testing that are much more agile and doesn't need that amount of documentation. I really like this one. I prefer to hire a senior developer who delivers a high product rather than hiring a tester. The seniority of a developer doesn't guarantee that they don't make any mistake, misunderstand something, have enough time to perform relevant tests, or be unaffected by confirmation biases. Testing is an unnecessary expense. It's neither an expense nor unnecessary. It's an investment and it's necessary. We will see where it saves money. So let's move to talk about types of testing. Another misconception is that testing is simply about taking the system, executing some test cases, and ensuring that it does what it's supposed to do or finding defects. This understanding corresponds to a specific type of testing, what it's called manual testing and functional testing. However, there are many types of testing, and each one adds a special value to the product we are building. So let me provide you with some examples. As I said, the most common type of test is functional testing, where the focus is on what the system does. However, there are non-functional tests that evaluate how the system works. So functional, what it does. Non-functional, how it does. So let me share with you some types of non-functional tests and their respective value. For example, portability. Who doesn't want a system that works on different devices, browsers, and operating systems? When you build software, you want to reach as wide audience as possible. Probably we are not going to build an application for iOS users and we will not take care about Android users. So we need to verify that our system works with different configurations. Localization testing. In our system, we need to perform this kind of testing. If our system is going to be used in different parts of the world, we want it to adapt to each user. If we sell something, it should be displayed in the local currency. If we ask for an appointment, it should be scheduled in the local time zone. Also, it should be translated into their local language. The date format also could lead to confusion. In some countries, we use day, month, year, while others use month, day, year, and so on. A lot of examples about localization testing. Compatibility. System coexist with other systems and needs to be able to work with them. In the past, there were often conflicts between antiviruses and some installed software, or maybe we use two programs that requires different versions of Java, and we have to test how do they perform if we have only one version installed. Performance testing. Well, performance testing has different aspects, such as longevity, response time, stress, and so on. Imagine Cyber Monday, Black Friday, or Amazon Prime Days, where the site cannot handle the amount of users accessing. The company could lose millions of dollars for having a site unavailable. This could have been prevented with stress testing. Security testing. How much is your privacy worth? How much is it worth to prevent unauthorized access to your system? How much is it worth to avoid to your brand's reputations being affected by security vulnerabilities? How much is the ransom or payoff you would have to make and the subsequent site rebuilding? Usability. Usability is related to the ease of use, learnability, usefulness, and aesthetic of the system. If your system is not intuitive, fast, attractive, organized, easy to navigate, and easy to use, the user will close the page and look for another one that does the same thing, but better. How much is that lost user worth? How much are all the users who left worth? How much is the negative reputation of lack of recommendation from that user? Accessibility. Accessibility laws are becoming stricter and more relevant in different countries. Not having an accessible system means that over 15% of the population cannot use your system. Blind, deaf, and colorblind also make purchases, book appointments, and use systems. It's not just about medical conditions either. Those without disabilities often face situational impediments that require the software to be accessible. For example, I once fractured my arm, had a cast, and I couldn't unlock the computer because I couldn't press Control, Alt, and Delete keys together. Whether it's not to attract more users or to avoid fines for non-compliance with laws, these tests need to be conducted. As you can see, this having a senior developer does not guarantee that these aspects are covered. I believe the value that each type of test is evident in this case. Let's move on another classification. Another classification of tests is based on levels. We need to test at all levels. Unit tests are performed at the component level. These tests help us to detect errors earlier, before that component is integrated with others. In context with continuous integration and continuous delivery, they are generally automated. This automation helps us to ensure that no code is introduced that could break something that was already working. This saves time that the developer could otherwise spend fixing things that were already working. While each of these components can work independently, integration tests help us to verify that the communication between these components works. If it doesn't work, we detect it early before it becomes part of a larger system. System-level tests verify that end-to-end workflows can be performed, ensuring that the user can complete their intended flow. These tests are valuable because they verify that the user can successfully complete their workflow and reduce the risk of system rejection or encountering errors during usage. An acceptance test exposes the software to users to ensure its acceptance. The value of this test lies in bringing the system closer to the user to validate whether it meets their expectations early on. If it doesn't meet their expectations, we can make corrections in a timely manner, because introducing changes in later stages of development is much more costly. Finally, if the user accepts the delivery, it enables invoicing and continues working with our clients. Other type of tests. There are many classifications. We won't go into detail about all of them, but let me tell you how other types of tests also help us to increase value and minimize cost. Well, exploratory testing, it prioritizes the freedom using of the system over following structured steps. This allows us to explore new and different scenarios that we hadn't tested before, but that a user may explore. These tests are especially useful in contexts where documentation is poor. And the value that exploratory testing provides is in exploring scenarios that we probably hadn't tested previously, but the user will perform, and so we can detect new types of defects. Regression testing. These tests are executed repeatedly before the introduction, a new feature, or a bug fixing. It will let us to verify that what used to work still works. This allows us to detect errors as soon as changes are introduced, so we can reduce the cost of their correction. For example, knowing the cause of the error facilitates debugging. Additionally, it prevents the error from reaching production, avoiding the need to do a rollback, to roll back the system to a previous version. Rolling back in production is costly and can affect our reputation and customer satisfaction. Since these tests are generally the same, they are automated. That's one of the motivations for test automation. But how does automation help us? Well, let's talk a little bit about that. It saves time because tests can be executed much faster. It's more efficient. It allows testers to focus on more productive tasks instead of repeatedly executing the same test. It immediately detects defects. It enables testing scenarios that would be impossible or costly to test manually, such as performance or stress testing. And static testing. It involves analyzing a work product, such as a specification, source code, or diagram, without executing it, and analyzing a specification early and identifying ambiguities, missing path, or doubts help us to ensure a stronger foundation for development. It avoids to do it later and once the development has started. These tests add value by detecting defects that would otherwise go unnoticed, such as unreachable code or non-compliance with coding standards. And at the same time, it improves the quality of deliverables, making the code more maintainable. If the code is more maintainable, any future change will be cheaper to implement. These are some reasons why testing adds value and reduces cost. We could talk extensively about this topic and include other types of tests, but time is limited, so let's move to talk about practices that help us to save money. Testing practices. We have discussed the type of test. Now let's talk about practices that the industry is currently using and that are very beneficial. The first one is shift-left testing. This approach aims to start testing activities as early as possible in the development life cycle. By doing so, defects can be identified and fixed before they escalate into major problems. Also, these early corrections are most cost-effective and help avoid costs associated with changes and rework in later stages. Shift-left testing as well just as testing moves to the left, it also moves to the right. What does it mean to perform shift left testing? Well, it means to test in production, something that was very disapproved in the past. Now it's accepted, and not only accepted, but also promoted. The value of this approach is that we are testing on the current infrastructure configuration with real data rather than making assumptions. Another practice is pairwise testing. Often we have multiple inputs, conditions, or combinations of data, making tests very complex. And with pairwise testing, we can reduce the number of tests to be executed by over 80%, and by properly selecting combination of data. The other one is risk-based testing. Risks are events that, if they occur, have negative consequence. A risk-based testing approach involves executing tests that address the highest risk first. This helps prevent undesired effects and bring us closer to achieving project objectives. Agile practice like BDD, behavior-driven development, or ATDD, acceptance-driven development, these practices help ensure that the system aligns as closely as possible with user expectations. Continuous integration. The practice of continuous integration is closely linked to testing, because whenever a developer wants to integrate their code with the rest of the code, it's expected that automated tests are run to prevent defects from being introduced into the currently working version. In other words, this approach is preventive, and defects are detected early. Test automation. I won't go into detail because we already talked about this, but it's a good practice. We use of virtualized testing environments to replicate production environments in a more cost-effective and flexible manner. This helps reduce costs associated with buying and maintaining physical hardware. Effective test data management. What does effective mean? It means automating data creation, or having databases that closely resemble the production database with masked data, so that we don't spend time creating data and the tests are realistic as possible. Use of tools. Each type of test generally has its set of tools. We also use support tools for testing, but in relation to this point, I'd like to mention test management tools, because they provide us with information about status, progress, and allow us to improve the process. Implementation of good configuration management practices. Configuration management is essential for maintaining a stable and controlled testing environment. By implementing good configuration management practices such as version control, change traceability, and baseline management, we avoid problems caused by unauthorized or undocumented changes. This helps save time and resources by preventing stability issues and ensuring the integrity of the testing environments. Artificial intelligence applies to testing. We can make a great use of tools like ChatGPT or similar ones to facilitate the creation of test scenarios or even some automations. So those are really good practices that will help us to save money while doing testing. Well, the 10 most important benefits. Let's summarize the most important benefits of testing that we have been discussing. Early detection of errors. Testing allows us to identify and correct defects in the early stages on the software development lifecycle. By fixing them early, it's more cost-effective, the error is localized, and we save on maintenance. Improve software quality. Testing helps improve the quality of software by addressing non-functional attributes of quality, by identifying deficiency in functionality, performance, security, usability, and other aspects, so we can improve the overall quality of the software. Risk reduction. testing helps mitigate risk associated with software development by reducing the likelihood of failures, production issues, customer dissatisfaction, damage to company reputation, security issues, and other unwanted eventualities. We minimize potential risk. Cost saving, while testing involves an initial investment, it can generate significant long-term saving. Early error detection and resolution prevent cost and rework. Additionally, by improving software quality, costs associated with technical support, customer service, and problems arising from errors and failures in production are reduced. Compliance with requirements and standards, testing helps verify that the software meets established functional and non-functional requirements as well. This is particularly important in regulated areas that we have to reach some industry standards such as healthcare, banking, or security, where compliance is crucial. Improve user experience. Usability testing allows evaluation of how users interact with the software and how they feel while using it. By identifying areas for improvement in user interfaces, navigation, and overall experience, software can be optimized to provide a more intuitive and satisfying experience. Facilitate software maintenance and evolution. As I said, the generated code is of higher quality and more maintainable. This build a solid foundation for easiest software evolution. Improve company image. Well-tested and high-quality software reflects a positive image of the company. It demonstrates a commitment to excellence and customer satisfaction. We can improve the quality, reputation, and generate trust in the market. Accelerate development cycle. While it may seem paradoxical, proper testing can accelerate the software development lifecycle by detecting and resolving errors early. Delays and time spent of subsequent correction are reduced, and increase software customer confidence. Reliable, functional, and high quality software earns the trust of customers and end users. Customer satisfaction is essential for the success of a company, and tested software provides a positive experience leading to customer loyalty, retention, and recommendation. Well, how can we translate all this into numbers? I don't like to analyze case studies in detail because they tend to be extensive, tragic, or related to the space and things that are quite distant from our daily life. But I think briefly mentioning some examples can help us to be aware of economic dimension of all of this. In 2009, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, of the United States released a mobile application called IRS To Go that allow taxpayers to perform various tax-related transactions. However, the application received criticism for its lack of usability, and user couldn't complete basic tasks. According to a report from them, it's estimated that the usability issues of the application cost approximately $2.8 million in additional calls and visits to the IRS office by taxpayers. In 2021, Vueling Airlines was fined with 90,000 euros for failing to meet accessibility requirements. And the last example, in 2012, the video game company Electronic Arts released a highly anticipated game called SimCity for mobile devices. Perhaps you are familiar with it. It's a game that allows users to build and manage their own virtual city. However, shortly after its release, players began experiencing technical issues, performance problems, server crashes, and game errors. The mobile testing strategy has been very deficient, and it's estimated that the company lost around $10 million due to refunds requested from dissatisfied users. So let's move to the conclusions. Well, the purpose of this talk has been to challenge the common perception that testing is merely an activity of checking things. We have explored how testing adds real value and tangible value to our project, and how it can be a smart investment rather than an unnecessary expense. We have learned that testing is not just about finding errors and defects, but also about ensuring the expectations of users and clients. It's a process that helps us safeguard what the user requests, propose improvements that exceed their expectations, and ask the right questions to avoid costly omissions and misunderstandings. Testing allows us to identify issues before they become expensive errors in production, preventive economic losses, reputation damage, and customer loss. It also helps us to maximize the value of what we deliver to the market and minimize the cost associated with late corrections and reworks. Therefore, testing is not just another stage in software development, it's an essential activity in our delivery process. It's an strategic investment. Lastly, I believe that testing is not only a technical activity, but a way of thinking and acting that drive us to look for the excellence and deliver exceptional products. Instead of seeing testing as an obligation, let us view it as an opportunity to create value and make the difference. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I'm available in case you have any question or comment now, and if you have any further thoughts later, feel free to contact me through social networks. So Rodolfo, it's all yours.
Thank you, Nadia. So we will start the Q&A part of the webinar. Feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A icon that is down there at the center of your screen. In the meanwhile, we got a couple of questions here, Nadia. One is that they can get the PPT or the PDF of this information. I will answer that. We will have this video recorded in the YouTube channel from the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce. Question for you, Nadia. You said that testing is usually associated with functional and manual testing. Why do you think that happens?
Well, this misunderstanding can have several causes. Historically, it's the way in which testing begins in company, but it's also the way we learn. The person who starts in testing usually starts in that way, doing manual and functional testing, and maybe later he or she is not interested in other topics, or maybe doesn't want to become more technical, or sometimes they come to testing by chance, so they don't have any training. The training is just the daily work. So consequently, they are not aware that there are other types of testing.
Perfect. Hope it's clear. Thank you. Next. How to know what type of test should be implemented in my project?
Well, it's a really good question. As part of the test planning, one of the things that we have to do is to create or to think about our testing strategy. This is very important because you have to make an appropriate strategy for each project. It's not the same to test a VI system than an e-commerce. So it's not the same to do a desktop testing or mobile testing. So it's not the same to work in one methodology or in another one. So for each project, we have to think a particular strategy. This implies asking many questions, answering them, and choosing the most appropriate test for that context.
Got a very similar question about trying to figure out what kind of testing. So I guess that your answer solved both. Next one is we have actually developers area doing performance tests. Is that correct?
Well, the most important thing is that you have someone who perform performance testing. It doesn't matter who. So it could be good, mainly if it's in unit level, for example.
Good. How do I convince the client that they need other type of tests besides the traditional ones?
Well, some ideas that come to my mind, explaining the benefits of the other type of test. For example, you can share this webinar and convince them that it's very important to do so. Share success stories that may be close to our client industry or issues, showing the client the risk of not doing other type of tests, but not generic risk, but the real risk. If they don't include this type of testing, you will have these kind of problems. And also, I think sharing some reports on where the industry is going. So we have, I think, these options.
Ooh, great one. How do you see artificial intelligence and testing process?
Well, I think it's really interesting and it's very helpful. I really use it in my daily life, in my daily work life. You can use it, for example, for thinking new ideas that you that doesn't come to your mind. You can use to solve some, if you are doing automation, for example, and you don't know how to locate some object in the screen, maybe you can use ChatGPT to help you to find that object. Or maybe if you are doing automation code and it doesn't compile, or you're having some problems, you can get some support as an assistant to help you to fix that error or to understand in which part of the code it could be found.
Future is there. Future is there. Oh, the last one. I guess that is the last. Yes. Can you share any insights on the collaboration between development teams and testing teams?
Yes, I will invite you to, in my YouTube channel, there is a talk that it's called The Agility Becomes More Friends, La agilidad nos hizo más amigos in Spanish, that it talks about our relationship and how it changed from the waterfall area to agile times. And the most important thing is to work in a collaborative environment where there is an approach that is very interesting, that it's called the whole team approach. You can look for that concept. And the concept is that it doesn't matter who performs some kind of test. The important thing is that the testing activities are done in the project and all of us is responsible for quality. So if we have this in mind, you can create a collaborative environment in your team.
There are a couple of new ones we got short in time, but we try to figure out how to get this. Can the AIs replace the work of the tester in the future?
In the near future, no, but it's difficult to predict. I think that no, because we perform a lot of activities that involves more cognitive processes that are more complex than the actual AI could perform. But maybe the artificial intelligence evolves to something more complex in the future. Who knows?
Now, yes, the last one, we're running out of time, but what are some good testing tools? What is a good coding language to know for testing purposes, both for background apps or front-end UI testing?
Well, it's very generic because good testing tools, I will ask tools for what? Maybe you need a tool for API testing, or maybe you need a tool for test management, or maybe you need a tool for automation. So the most important thing is to understand which are your requirements and then try to analyze all the tools in this field to analyze which one better fit to your needs. For example, I can say the most used tools, but not the best one. For example, for agile test management, you can use Jira with their plugins such as X-Ray or Zephyr. For API testing, you can use Postman, but the most important thing is that it's a good adaptation for your project. It's the same that the testing strategy. The best tool does not exist. You have to look for the best tool for your project.
Good. Sorry, there is a couple more that we are running out of time. So just to close, thank you all again for attending this webinar. Thanks, Nadia, for these amazing presentations. And thanks, Police Lab, for supporting and the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce too. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.